lights passing, I'm in my element. How the heaven one decision.
Welcome to another episode of Chopping It Up with Visionary. I am here with
Machinesix.
How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, man.
Good.
Enjoying the day.
Yes, sir.
It's another week.
Fucking 90 degrees today, man.
Yeah, man. I'm here for it.
We're here at Parkville South. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
So I guess we'll get right into it. You're from Manchester, Connecticut, same as me, right?
Yeah, well, I was born in Seattle,
Okay.
and then we lived in Ohio for a little bit. Briefly lived with my grandma in New York, and then I came to Manchester in elementary school.
Okay.
And then I stayed in Manchester till I graduated high school.
Nice. What was that transition like, living in so many places growing up? The cultural differences?
I don't remember it.
Okay.
I have a couple memories of Ohio and New York, but I was young. Elementary school was 5, 6? I don't really remember much before that, to be honest.
That makes sense.
I barely remember a lot of even years after that.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I don't know. If it affected me in some way, it's some shit that I'm not aware of. It's just subconscious or something.
Gotcha. Well, you do a lot of traveling, even in your older years, so I figured that maybe would...
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, okay, psychiatrist, you pulled it out of me.
But in terms of your music, what were you raised on? What kind of music were you raised on?
Well, my dad plays piano, so I started doing piano lessons when I was younger, because he would just give it to me. And he did music. My dad's a reverend, so and before he was a pastor, he was the music director, so he would do songs and stuff. And my mom is a theater major, so they're definitely musical type people, but at the same time, it's not I really listened to a lot of stuff growing up. Yeah, they were musical, but a lot of it was if it's not worship songs, it's kind of just my dad just likes kind of classic rock and stuff from he was a kid, and my mom just kind of likes pop stuff, So I would just hear stuff like Coldplay or I don't know, Van Halen, but a lot of times it's they would get music for us in the car, soundtracks to movies or other kinds of audiobooks and stuff. I don't really have many memories of them really sharing a ton of music around when I was younger. And maybe I'm misremembering a lot of it, but most of it came from just an encouragement of playing piano, playing in the band, that kind of stuff. I'm trying to even remember the CDs they had because I remember back when they had the CD book. The only ones I can really think of are Coldplay. I remember my dad had this POD CD, which was this old nu metal band. But again, it was always attached to Christian stuff. I remember them getting me there's this band, you ever heard of it called Reliant K?
No.
It's it's kind of a pop punk band, but it was Christian. It was always some my dad would get CDs with all this Christian music on it, where it's normal music, but the people are Christians or whatever, so they would promote them. That was really a lot of the music when I was young, before I started being able to seek it out on my own. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
A lot of what I would say influenced my sound, I don't really feel came from them, other than just sort of being open to learning instruments and whatnot, or just involving myself in musical type stuff,
Absolutely. So with all of that being said, when did hip hop and rap weave its way into your music taste?
Well, as a fan, I'm trying to think. When I started to get my own music, it was really, I guess, when I started using the computer. And I remember getting some stuff from my cousin, Like I literally this like I had an MP3 player. It was just like the USB stick.
Yeah.
You just plug it into the computer, and I remember like going and like plugging in and just downloading stuff off his computer when he wasn't there. And it was like I remember they had like the Linkin Park Jay-Z collab. I remember like getting certain like I think he had some Eminem. I wasn't really into that though. But then also we had a family friend. I guess I won't say her name for privacy. But she was like babysitting us a lot and stuff like that. And she was like way more into like all sorts of music like Michael Jackson and all sorts of stuff like that. And I remember she had like I would go over there. She was helping me clean out stuff. And she was like letting me take CDs because like her mom and her were just like buy all this crap. But it was just one of those people where their house is full of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like so she would like let me take stuff like you can help me clean. You can have these old CDs, whatever. I remember I got Nelly's Suit from her, which I listened to a lot. And then I had Kanye's Graduation.
Okay.
But she told me like I don't think she was scared of Pastor Phil like giving his son Kanye. I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she didn't know if they would like all the swearing and, all that kind of stuff. Which at the time was fair. Like, my parents were, like, very much, like, no cussing. Like, but, so she told me, like, you can't take that one. Graduation. And then I was just being a bad kid. I just swiped that shit. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking I was so slick. Like, I called her later and was like, I accidentally took it. Like... I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Like
thinking like she would believe me. I was just like a kid, you know what I mean? And then she basically just decided to let it go and was like because she basically was like, if they get mad at him for having it, like he wasn't supposed to take it. I'm assuming is what she thought, so it wasn't like her fault. You know what I mean? And I remember just rinsing that Kanye album, bro. Like, Graduation is still probably my favorite. It's unfortunate what he does these days, but like Graduation, I think was like very instrumental to that, and that really I got into it from like being around, like getting into like local like people near me that were like making music and shit. Because I started out with a camera, because I had bought myself a camera to film skating, and I would use like. I liked a lot of the rap that was in like skate videos and stuff, like old Baker stuff and things like that. And then because I had the camera, I would start like filming people, all this stuff, and that's just kind of like that was my gateway into the world of like learning like like people make beats, people rap. You don't have to be Kanye to do that. You know what I mean? Like. That's probably the inception point. I was like, I don't know, like middle school or something. So I had listened to some stuff before, but it really like opened up for me like probably middle school.
You started to mention something that I was going to bring up next. You had a lot of photography going on about 2015. So were you doing the photography or the recording of the skate videos first?
It was really the same time.
Gotcha.
Because I would just be out and about with the camera. I would just end up taking pictures anyways. Like, I got into photography. Photography and skating really like came together at the same time. Because like at the same time that I was going out with people skating, like I wasn't very good. And like one of the other guys was this dude Jay Gao. He like he was into skating. He was also into like photo video at school, and I like met him at like the NHS like photo video lab. And so like me and him started like making like skate clothes and shit. And like, but at the same time, he's also teaching me about like DSLRs and like all that kind of stuff. So it really was the same. The skating and the photography really was hand in hand. Like there really wasn't a before or after. I would just end up shooting videos, taking pictures, just kind of having the camera with me. And then I met this kid, Romel, who's a photographer now in New York. But me and him used to go like do photo trips in Hartford and stuff. And like all of that was kind of like around the same time for sure. That would be like 24. I mean, even a little earlier. Like I would say that era was really like 2013, even a little bit of 2012 into 2015.
Gotcha.
Maybe 2015 is when I started like posting pictures of my Instagram and stuff. But yeah.
Gotcha. And I guess the last tail end of the early career part that I wanted to talk about was like, where did the name come from? The story of the name.
Well, and again, all that stuff is kind of even before I made music.
Gotcha.
So like that's not even like pre-career. Like I would say when I really started making music was like 2015. And the name specifically, I can't remember if I had any names before that, but when I was really trying to nail down a name, it actually comes from this GameCube game called Beautiful Joe. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's this like ill ass game where like this dude gets sucked into a movie theater screen and he like it's like the superhero. It's a dope ass game, but there's this big ass like ship that he gets called the Six Machine. And I just used to think that shit was ill. It was like my favorite game at the time, so I just took that and flipped it to Machine6.
Gotcha.
And I thought that I was like, oh, I'm just using it for now, but you know, I'll find something better later. But then it just never went away. Like once I started like using it more, like and time just kept going, it felt harder and harder to want to like change it, you know. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, all right, well that's it, you know. It's Machine6.
That's you.
And hopefully I'm not breaking any copyrights or anything by using that shit from the game, you know?
You flipped the names.
Yeah, I mean, fair use, man. But don't let me get too big, they'll come for me.
I want to dig into your discography a little bit now. First EP, 2017, Helium Hollow.
Okay, so that's not my first
That's not
project.
your first project?
No.
Okay. I had a feeling that wasn't when you said you've been making music since 2015, but that's the first published project that I noticed.
Okay, well part of that is my fault because I kind of archived, so my old Bandcamp is still active. It's just not under Machine6.bandcamp.
Okay.
So the actual first EP I ever made, I can't even remember what it was called, but I put it on SoundCloud. That's gone. I found like the files on my computer a while ago, but like the cover art, I can't remember the name of what it was, but that must have been like 2015 that I put that on SoundCloud. That shit's long since been deleted. That was me just like first putting shit together, and like it's just awful music, bro. It's just terrible. But like it was like year one of making beats, you know what I mean? Like back in 2015 or 2013, 14, like that's when I started like working on it and shit. But and then the first mixtape I ever put out was called Carcinogen, and that was actually 2016. It was this past March was 10 years, and that shit was that's crazy too. But at the time, I had like started to get into like a group online, or just started to network, and there was like people that I would talk to online. I was like really in the SoundCloud community, like the early SoundCloud community, like all of 2015, and then 2016, I like finally put out my first tape, which was called Carcinogen, and it was just a lot of love. Like I got a lot of reposts and shit, and so that definitely like put a battery in my back. And then at the end of 2016, I put out an EP called Loose Ends. I could share the Bandcamp link with you.
I would love that.
Like I don't mind. Like it's just in a different spot now, but it's still up. It's seismachinas.bandcamp.com, so it's just like Six Machine in Spanish.
Okay.
And it's just under Machine6 archived for like the name. But I put out Loose Ends, which is me just making like electronic music with a bunch of features. Like it's just like old SoundCloud shit. Like my boy Hush did one on there. My guy Drew the Architect, who was like from this group called Team Sesh with this rapper called Bones. I was friends with a bunch of them. my dude at the time, Cedric Madden, and this dude Sight, who now he's like a rapper. His name is like Edward Skeletrix.
Okay.
But back then he was just like a producer. And that was me just trying to like branch out and shit. And then 2017, at the beginning of 2017, I dropped like my big fucking mixtape, which was called Tennis. And that was the one where it was like 20 songs, like all the different beats I could get, all the different features I could get. You know Lonnie X from around here?
No.
Like he was a rapper from like Hartford back in the day. Like I had him on there. I had this other rapper from Hartford called Teddy Bruschi. I had like a bunch of beats from producers on SoundCloud. Like that was really like I put like a whole bunch into that. You know what I mean? Like and like I think it did okay for me like at the time, you know? And then later that year, that's when Helium Hollows came out.
Gotcha.
And that was me going back to like the instrumental, because mind you, Tennis, I was rapping on everything. Like, it was like a rap tape. And I was singing on some stuff too, but like it was me like as a vocalist. And then Helium Hollows was actually, what that was my first project with a label.
Gotcha.
So it was a label called AM Discs, and like from like a few years back to up to like 2017, they just did a bunch of like electronic releases. Like there was a lot of people on SoundCloud that would maybe do an AM Discs release. Like they were just kind of like an internet label of that time that just put out a bunch of cool shit. And so that was the first time I'd ever like done a release like with the label.
Gotcha.
And I just did an EP called Helium Hollows. At the time I was living in Texas. And Helium Hollows was like a nickname for like the area that I was in from back in the day.
Okay.
And the artwork was done by like a local painter. He did like a painting for each song, but then put them together for the EP cover.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was my first ever label release. But yeah, there was a few leading up to that. There's just a little more archive. Like I've gone back and forth about how public I want them to be. There's a lot of stuff on there I think is like really bad, but also like, I don't know, it's just progression, you know? I think there's definitely still some value in a lot of that. And I do think there's still tracks that are genuinely good. So I don't know, I might find a new way to present them in the future, but there was a certain point in like the recent like year or two where it's just like, I just want to move on to like the next chapter. You know what I mean? So like I'm not gonna obliterate them from existence, but it's like, you know, I'm in a new chapter of life as a person, but also as an artist. You know, so it's like I'm really focused on just like moving forward.
For sure. And I don't want to get too personal, but I noticed Helium Hollow. It's like very atmospheric, very like happy, mellow. Or not mellow, but you know, it's like very chill.
Ambient, yeah.
Yeah, ambient. And then you fast forward a little bit to 2019, 2020, you drop Everlasting and Is This Healing, 2 separate singles. They had like a very sad, personal feeling to them. I just wanted to know if there was like, what was the difference in between what you were dealing with in 2017 versus that time period of your life?
Well, there was did you catch there was another one in between those?
I probably did miss that.
That one, I think, is still on Apple and Spotify.
What's it called?
It's called Human Regret.
Okay.
So that
oh, yeah, the EP. You got an EP, Human Regret.
Yeah, that's 3 songs.
Yes.
Like, that project is pretty depressing.
It is.
Yeah. Like, you did hear it.
Yeah, but it was just those 2 singles that stuck out to me in terms of just how sad they felt.
Well, like, it does. There's that period of my life was definitely one of like a lot of like crazy shit, because 2016 was leading up to that. 2017, I like moved to Nashville to go to school for audio engineering.
Okay.
And then at the end of that year, I moved to Texas after finishing. It's more like a tech school, so it wasn't like a full like a 4-year college or anything. It was like 7 months in the studio, 6 days a week, like more of like a tech type thing. I got certified, not like an actual degree. But then I moved to Texas, and yeah, it was just like I was in a group, like a collective in Texas, and it was just like a lot of crazy stuff, like just a whole lot of like life. You know what I mean? Like, just yeah, there was definitely a lot of like difficult things. You know what I mean? Attached with that whole like journey. Not all bad, like there's good and bad in everything, you know? But definitely was feeling like a lot of it. And then I went back to Tennessee for a couple years, and then around the time those 2 singles are coming out, Everlasting Is This Healing, like not only was I coming off of like this whole like kind of war zone of like what happened like in Texas with like my collective and all these different people and like kind of emerging from the rubble of that, because basically like I was in one group, then I was in another group, and both groups like fell apart and like all this kind of stuff happened, people picking sides, going at each other, things caught in the crossfire, just like really dumb shit, you know what I mean? But also like super serious at the end of the day, because it was like all of us were involved in it, you know what I mean? So coming out like the rubble of that, going back to Tennessee, like, all right, I'm trying to get some air. And then like those came around the time like COVID.
Gotcha.
So then it's just like, I'm in Tennessee, I don't really know what I'm doing. All these people I used to be running with, like I'm just kind of away. I'm like on my own now type shit, you know? And then even on top of that, you know, I was just in a place with those two where it's just like I didn't know what was next type of thing, you know? Because up until then, my whole career had always been around other people. You know, like here I was with like Lonnie and like his circle or his like extended circle, and then I left, and I was in like a group of people online, like the SoundCloud scene. I was in a collective. I was in another collective. It was always like in this sort of like social setting that I was doing. And then I went to Tennessee and it was like, boom, it's just me. And I still had homies, obviously I still had a network, but like when I'm thinking about I'm just making music by myself. You know what I mean? I hadn't done that in a long time. So I think I was just like, I didn't know what was coming next, you know? Absolutely. I was definitely like very much sort of like, and then, you know, I think shortly after those is when lockdown came. So then it was even just like, man, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like, everything just seemed like very uncertain, for sure.
Fast forward to 2023, Stash Spot Music Volume 2. You worked with Eagz on that project. You produced the whole thing. Go into the process of working with him on that entire project and the rollout and just how that experience was like.
Yeah, so Eagz is one of the first people I ever made music with back in like 2013, 2014, 15 days. He went to MHS. He was 1 year younger than me. And I forget how we met. I think because at that time, because even before, I was in a collective in high school too. But that was when I was doing a lot of the camera work. But near the end of that, I started getting into making beats because my boy Quake, his producer name is Foresight. He taught me how to make beats back when I was in high school. And so I started messing around, and I just met Eagz through like another one of the rappers in our group, like knew him, and that was how we connected. And some of my first beats, some of my first like sessions at my crib, like recording, was with Eagz. And you know, we were making bullshit back then, but we were learning. And then I left, and I was gone for like 7 years. We would keep in touch and stuff. Then I moved back here a couple years after lockdown, and I started working at a studio in Manchester. Well, really just using that studio. And
2022.
Yeah, around that time, yeah. Silk City in Manchester. And then me and him just reconnected. Like, he just came through to, like, work on some songs and stuff. He knew I had the studio there and whatnot. And, like, the thing with, like, me and Eagz is like, we just been friends for so long. It was like we just picked up where we left off 7 years later. You know, it was just like nothing. It was like no time had passed. You know, and so we just started working more and more. And at the time, he was just thinking about his next project, so we decided to just do the collab. And I made just like a bunch of beats, and I mean the whole process probably took like a month, maybe 2. He works really fast, so once I had the beats done, it was just a matter of him just taking the time to come to the studio and record. And then yeah, we put it out, did a couple videos with his homie. And yeah, it's still calm. I still think maybe it's a little underrated, you know, but I mean that's just how everything is, you know. Yeah, but it was a good experience, and that was like really like the first major thing we did, like coming back together after I came back to CT.
Cool, that's cool. Another project that I want to talk about that you fully produced, and it's probably one of my favorite projects that you have fully produced, was Sold the Volvo by Dodey Pangea.
Yeah.
Can you go into the making of that as well?
It's funny because he was at my house yesterday. Him, Eagz, and our other boy, Redo. They were all at my house yesterday recording. But me and Dodey literally had a conversation about how he was saying that album was like the most slept on, that he thinks is his best project and his favorite. And like, I feel the same way. But, yeah, me and Dodey, I think it was Native who brought him to like a studio session one time, and me and him just kind of like clicked in terms of like humor. Like we just ended up getting into some funny ass conversations, and it was just a good energy in the studio, you know. And then at the time, I think I had sent him a couple beats, and it was him. Like he had wanted to do a project or something, so he like came to the studio with his boy Mark of the Nine, and we were just there. And it's so funny. We were outside smoking or something, and like there's like at that studio there's like a brewery across the parking lot, and like this father and son like came out, and like they were having an argument, and the dad was talking to the son, like, and we were trying not to listen, but they were just so loud, right? And so we have no clue what the context is, but the dad's yelling at the kids like, "What the fuck you want to eat?" He's like, "You're so ungrateful." And we're over there like, "What the fuck?" And then he's like, "You know what I had to do?" He's like, "I had sold the Volvo." Like, and like, bro, we're just over there and we're tweaking, bro. We're just laughing so hard at this shit. Cause like, what did the son do that was so bad that the dad had to sell his car? Like, yes. And so we just couldn't get over that. And with me and Dodey, it's always like, it's always jokes. Like, it's always about, like, shit he be finding funny, because he's just, like, a clown-ass dude. Like, not in a bad way. But I'm saying, like, he's just always, like, finding some shit to, like, laugh about. So, like, we just couldn't get over I sold the Volvo. So we just called that, we just made the tape that name. We knew it was, like, going to be some shit people didn't really understand, but, you know, it's just kind of like a, what does that even mean type of thing, you know? And then, yeah, we shot the cover. The cover is, like, in that same, like, complex where that conversation happened. So it's a little full circle. But, yeah, I think that he's, like, he's got, like, a special-ass talent. So, I mean, really, any beat you give him, he just goes crazy. So, you know, it's kind of a given that he's going to spaz.
That's dope. I had to ask about that album, and I'm actually very happy that I did, because that was a funny ass story. One more project that I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly. Correct me when I'm wrong. Ceres, the False Line.
Series.
Series.
Yeah.
You and Don McLennan produced that. So that was like the first time where in your discography that I noticed that you were kind of like really experimenting outside of your realm a bit, you know, with the whole drum and bass vibe. Yeah. And then the experimentalness within it, like you had happiness, you had happy beats, you know, like off the wall. And then you had eerie yet kind of tough, like Perfect Dark, those kind of beats. So I kind of wanted you to go into the making of that project and how that came about.
Yeah, so Dom, are you familiar with Dom?
Going through your discography made me familiar with Dom.
Okay, yeah. So he was in LA for a bit because his group had moved there, and then when the group had came to an end, he was kind of in between LA and CT, but he had this space like kind of near downtown that they were calling the campus, and he had kind of like a studio in there. It was kind of like an open door policy type of thing, but me and him had connected like way back in the day, kind of, but we never really like grew a friendship fully. It was more just like an acquaintance type of thing. Before he had like left to go like do the full Brockhampton thing. But since I had moved back, I just started pulling up. We were just working on stuff, and we just ended up having a lot of like crossover like influences, even the stuff outside of rap, especially when it comes to like that electronic stuff. And so really, False 9, I had started that on my own just as like a side project for like house, jungle, drum and bass type stuff. So like a handful of those like original singles on there are just me. But at a certain point, me and him were just like making that kind of stuff together all the time. I was just going to his studio, and we would just like make stuff. And he didn't really have like he expressed to me that he didn't really have like an outlet to put out his electronic shit too. Like he also needed a side project. He felt like, excuse me. So I was like, bro, what if we just join forces? You know what I mean? Like, because I always wanted False 9 to be like it's a character, like it's a story, like a universe type of thing. Like technically, False 9 is it's like a gorillas type of thing, where it's like a fictional duo, like in sort of like this story universe.
Okay.
We both just kind of fucked with that idea. We were both making that type of music, so we're like, yo, let's just make an EP, you know, put it out, and then just start like seeing where this project could go. So like that's really like the future. That's like what I'm working on a lot, like right now. It's like that's very much like kind of like forward facing for me as an artist currently. Is like this sort of like side project with Dom. So yeah, there's like a whole story beat behind that EP. There's like a bunch of Lawrence stuff. It just takes time with the art side of things. Like the music we can just bang out, right? But we're not illustrators or animators or anything like that, you know? So that stuff definitely takes a lot more time, but we do the best we can. We're able to use certain resources. Like we did a collab with two artists, Ghost and Cindy Nova. They did like a remix of one of the tracks, and like we were able to make some cool like little reels with like futuristic cities and shit. Yeah, so it was really organic. I think for me, it's like it was just like purely like we just happened to be like aligned in a certain way, and like, we just happened to be in proximity, and it really just came together in a super organic way. There's a lot of stuff that we work on that's like intentional in terms of like stuff we're trying to do for like business or things like that. But the False 9, it just felt right. You know what I mean? Like even when it was me like saying, hey, I have this thing, but like what if we turn it into like a joint venture? Like it was just kind of a no-brainer. Like it wasn't really me asking it. It was just more so like we both see where this is going. You know?
Absolutely.
So
it works well when things, you know.
Yeah.
Two people are on the same page like that.
Yeah.
And you were also on the same page when you both worked on a music composition for the Need for Speed.
Yeah.
Unbound Volume 9 trailer. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so Dom was invited to be on like the player council for Need for Speed, where they had like a bunch of creators and other people like come and like test the game early. People that were interested in the brand and stuff. He's like a big fan of Need for Speed and whatnot. He just got connected through that, and we actually, I didn't sign any papers or anything, so we made a whole album for them, where basically they were doing like an expansion based around like Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Okay.
And so we got like the music from the original soundtrack, and we made a whole album full of remixes that they were supposed to like use. And at the time, like there was like internal issues with EA and like restructuring and all that, and like our project kind of fell to the wayside. So we have an entire fucking album, and they ended up using, they still did the trailer for that. They used our music. Our music was in the game too, itself. But yeah, there is kind of like this entire unreleased Need for Speed album that we made. That unfortunately, I don't know. There's been some people that like still ask about it. Like people say like, because it had been talked about a little bit, and like other creators from that council have been like on like a live stream something like, yo, we need that full album to come out. So there's like a little bit of breadcrumbs, like, but yeah, that sort of business is just like, wow. It's like, it's a crazy business like internally when it comes to like that video game industry and stuff. Like, I don't know. I personally don't think that anything will ever come out of it, but who knows? Maybe we'll be allowed to like post it online one day or something. Like
That'd be dope.
Who knows? Yeah.
And being that you experienced something like that, would you ever do another kind of side quest like that? Working on a video game soundtrack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something along the lines of that.
Me and him are working on a few other video game projects. One of them has already kind of been publicized, but there's a dev studio called Creative AF Games that are working on the game, and they've already posted some promotional content with some False 9 music in it, but like we're definitely like supplying some music to that. And yeah, there's a couple other things that I don't really want to mention, but it's definitely like a world that I'm still involved in. Like through that, I've gotten into like doing like some sound design and scoring for like short films and stuff like that. So that's definitely still like very much a world that we're involved in.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do with that. And you mentioned Native earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to go into the Cathedral FM program and how it came about. He kind of gave me a little insight, but I want to know from your perspective as well.
Yeah, me and Jay just linked after I came back. I was just aware of him. I was just having people pull up to the studio, so he just came through at some point. I can't remember exactly when, but we just started collaborating, and we just always wanted to do something like a joint venture. We didn't know I didn't really know what it would be, but we wanted to do something, and so just kind of like the internal, there's always like a leaflet of ideas going on, and that just happened to be one of them where I thought like, I think this could really work as, the thing that we could do together, and so that's really where it came from. It took some time. We shot like the trailer, and then we had to wait a bit before we actually started doing it. But yeah, it's really just an outlet for like just showing like different sets of skills that we have, and also just like being able to like interface with artists and people in like a different way. Like we could, like we recently had this dude Radicule, who was a producer and rapper, like on for like an interview.
It was a dope interview.
Oh yeah, thank you, bro. But like, that's the type of thing where it's like, okay, we could say, yo, pull up to a studio session, or yo, you trying to give me beats, or you trying to rap on this type of thing. Like that's what we're used to. But now there's like this new way for us to be like, yo, what if you come through and we like learn more about your perspective? You know what I mean? And kind of just like be able to like get to know people and like share thoughts and life just in another way. You know what I mean? And just like really just be more, for me it's just like, it's like I have like all these different legs I can pull out, and I'm just trying to have as many of them, as many feet in something music related as possible. Absolutely. You know what I mean?
So in terms of what you just said, what's next for you in your career?
What's next for me? I mean, I think the main things I'm working on right now is, I mean, I'm definitely planning on releasing like solo music again this year, which I haven't really done a lot in a while, but I'm also just really trying to keep up these different irons I got in different fires. Like, I definitely plan, we definitely want to do cathedral episodes, interviews, like a couple of times a month the rest of the year. Working on the False Nine stuff with Dom, like, hopefully soon we'll be able to start putting out like the first kind of like illustrations, like character introductions and all that. And new music. And then just, yeah, I've got like my own brand called Ectocorp. Just in terms of like releasing music for all the homies, kind of like a label almost.
Okay.
But we also like, we've been doing like sample packs and drum packs, and like we're getting into like physicals, like doing tape releases for people, vinyl releases for people, just being like, you know, ready for like all sorts of different like situations, you know?
Yeah.
So really just working on like those kind of things, trying to like build up a little more of the business around it, but also like make sure I'm still like getting back to putting out music that I like, you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
I'm proud of, yeah.
And I'm going to ask you another question, something that I do like to ask artists a lot in my interviews. Since you've been doing this for over a decade now at this point, what's the next step in becoming a better producer and a better artist overall?
I think better producer, especially now that I'm doing a lot of like getting into like music for games, music for film, sound design, but even when it comes to like just beats too, I'm not trying to even say that it's just for that kind of stuff. Like, even if I'm just trying to come up with beats for like a rapper or someone that I want to like work with as a vocalist, I think one of the biggest like psyops of all time was don't learn music theory. There's like a lot of producers that will like, and it was especially strong when I was coming up. Like this idea of if you're cool online, if you're cool in person, especially when it comes to like hip hop beats and stuff like that, like you don't need to learn music theory. Almost to a degree where it was like if you knew music theory, you weren't cool. It was like cooler to not know it. And like I think there's truth in that statement where it's like, okay, you don't need music, you don't need to be an expert to make cool sounds or make music that people will connect with. You know what I mean? And like that part is definitely still true. And like if you're chopping up samples and stuff like that, like yeah, you don't need to know like all the chord progression, intricacies, and all that stuff. But like I think that when I look around at a lot of people around me, whether they're ahead of me in the game, behind me in the game, or just to my left and my right, I think there's a lot of people, especially ones that kind of like came up in the same era as me, that like if they had just learned like a little bit of music theory, it really helps. It really does help. Like especially now, like a lot of shit that's like popping off on the underground are like these super maximal beats, stuff like rage beats and stuff like melodic rage. Like all the even like, you know, like I think when I think of like a lot of the biggest rappers that are coming up, it's like Slayer, Pretty Fun, Lucy Bedrock, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's a lot of like layers and melody and like chords. Like
I'm fucking with Diamond right now too.
yeah, like bro, like if you just teach, I'm not saying like you have to go insane, but like if you just teach yourself a little bit of like music theory in terms of like building chords and all that stuff, it'll go a long way. And like there's definitely some gaps in my knowledge that are from coming up in that era where it's like I just never filled those gaps because I was like well, it doesn't matter, but it's like I'm kind of backtracking on a little bit of that now. And I wish I had just ironed it out back in the day, you know? So if I gave anyone advice, I'd be like, bro, if you're making beats, you have a MIDI keyboard, like just teach yourself the basics. You can go on YouTube, you know what I mean? Like, if I didn't know if I was in the position I was in right now and I didn't even know the basics, I feel like I would see these young kids coming up and I'd be like, it's over for me. You know what I mean? Because they're just running laps. You know what I mean? They're at least teaching themselves the basics of like how to make a seventh chord or how to like do this kind of thing, even when they're just in NFL like drawing it in. So it's like if you don't even have that basic shit, like you're gonna get left behind, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like it's just don't like. I think the people need to care about the craft again. I think that's gotten lost in the last 10 years. Or at least it's gotten like muddy, foggy for like a lot of people. It's just like, yo, like you should care about like your craft. You know what I mean? You should like build your skills. Like you should care about like making like really good stuff. Sound design is another area. Whatever floats your boat, whatever kind of stuff you make, like respect your own craft. Respect yourself as an artist and a craftsman, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
And before we end the interview, do you have any shout outs or announcements?
I mean, really just shout out to everybody I'm just working with, like Eagz, Dodey, Dom, Native, like, you know, all these people I'm working with these days, I'm just like, it's giving me a lot of battery in my back, you know, like, shouts out to my homies in London, you know, like, I've been working with my guy Cable, my guy Brandon, like, yeah, it's just, I'm really happy with all the stuff I'm involved with right now, so, yeah.
That's good, man, that's good. I'm happy you gave me the opportunity to chop it up with you. This was an amazing interview. I learned a lot about you, man, and I can't wait to see what's coming next for you.
Hell yeah, I appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely.
For real.
Absolutely. This has been Chopping It Up with Visionary. See you next episode.
Greedy bitch, you get a feast and ain't nobody eat it with you. That's the type of shit I see. Take note and I ain't leave.